Chapter 6, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Sorry, the book's getting really heavy. So I've got it perched on a pillow. Apologies for the side profile. Into the forest. I wish the Macready would hurry up and take all these people away, said Susan presently. I'm getting awfully cramped. What a filthy smell of camphor, said Edmund. I expect the pockets of these coats are full of it, to keep the moths away, said Peter. There's something sticking in my back. And isn't it cold? Said Susan. Now that you mention it, it is cold, said Peter. And hang it all, it's wet too. What's the matter with this place? I'm sitting on something wet. It's getting wetter every minute. He struggled to his feet. Let's get out, said Edmund. They've gone. Oh, said Susan suddenly, and everyone asked her what's the matter. I'm sitting against a tree, said Susan, and look, it's getting lighter over there. By Jove, you're right, said Peter. And look there, and there. It's trees all around, and this wet stuff is snow. Why, I do believe we've got into Lucy's wood after all. And now there was no mistaking it, and all 4 children stood blinking in the daylight of a winter's day. Behind them were coats hanging on pegs. In front of them were snow-covered trees. Peter turned at once to Lucy. I apologise for not believing you, he said. I'm sorry. Will you shake hands? Of course, said Lucy, and did. And now, said Susan, what do we do next? Do? Said Peter. Why, we go explore the wood, of course. Said Susan, stamping her feet. It's pretty cold. What about putting on some of these coats? They're not ours, said Peter doubtfully. I'm sure nobody would mind, said Susan. It isn't as if we wanted to take them out of the house. We shan't even take them out of the wardrobe, really. I never thought of that, Sue, said Peter. Of course, now you've put it that way, I see. No one could say that you bagged a coat as long as you leave it in the wardrobe where you found it, right? And I suppose this whole country is the wardrobe. They immediately carried out Susan's very sensible plan. The coats were rather too big for them, so that they came down to their heels, and they looked more like royal robes than coats. But they each put one on, and then they all felt a good deal warmer, and each thought the others looked better than theirs in the new get-up. But it was definitely more suitable for the landscape. We can pretend we're Arctic explorers, said Lucy. This is going to be exciting enough without pretending, said Peter, and he began leading the way forward into the forest. There were heavy darkish clouds overhead, and it looked as though there might be more snow. I say, said Edward presently, oughtn't we be bearing a bit more to the left, that is, if we're going to aim for the lamppost? He had forgotten for a moment that he must pretend never had to have been in the wood before. The moment the words were out of his mouth, he realised he'd given himself away. Everyone stopped. Everyone stared. Peter whistled. So, you really were here. That time Lou said she'd met you in here, and you made out she was telling lies? There was a dead silence. Well, of all the poisonous little beasts, said Peter, and shrugged his shoulders. He said no more. There seemed, indeed, no more to say, and presently the 4 resumed their journey. But Edmund was saying to himself, I'll pay you all out for this. You pack of stuck-up, self-satisfied prigs. Where are we going anyway? Said Susan, chiefly for the sake of changing the subject. I think Lou ought to be our leader, said Peter. Goodness knows she deserves it. Where will you take us, Lou? Oh, what about going to see Mr. Tumnus? Said Lucy. He's the nice fawn I told you all about. Everyone agreed to this, and off they went, walking briskly and stamping their feet. Lucy proved to be a very good leader. At first she wondered whether she would be able to find the way, but she recognised an odd-looking tree in one place and the stump in the other, and brought them on their way to some uneven ground and a little valley, at last to the very door of Mr. Tumnus's cave. But a terrible surprise awaited them. The door had been wrenched off its hinges and broken to bits. Inside the cave was dark and cold. It had a damp feel and the smell of a place that had not been lived in for very many days. Snow had drifted in from the doorway and was heaped up at the floor, mixed with something black which turned out to be charred sticks and ashes from the fire. Someone had apparently flung it about the room and then stamped it out. The crockery lay smashed on the floor, and the picture of the fawn's father had been slashed into shreds with a knife. "Well, this is pretty good a washout," said Edmund. "Not much good us coming here, was there?" "What is this?" said Peter, stooping down. He had just noticed a piece of paper which had been nailed through the carpet to the floor. "Is there anything written on it?" said Susan. "Yes, I think there is," answered Peter, "but I can't read it in this light. Let's get out to the open air." They all went out into the daylight, crowded around Peter, as he read the following words. "The former occupant of these premises, the fawn Tumnus, is under arrest and awaiting his trial on high treason against Her Imperial Majesty Jadis, Queen of Narnia, Chatelaine of Cair Paravel, Empress of the Lone Islands, also of comforting Her Said Majesty's enemies, harbouring spies and fraternising with humans. Signed, Morgrim, Captain of the Secret Police. Long live the Queen." The children stared at each other. I don't know that I'm going to like this place after all," said Susan. "Who is the Queen, Lou?" said Peter. "Do you know anything about her?" "She isn't a real queen after all. She's a horrible witch, the White Witch. Everyone, all the wood people, they hate her. She had made an enchantment over the whole country so that it's always winter and never Christmas." "I wonder if there's any point going on," said Susan. "I mean, it doesn't seem particularly safe here. And it looks as if it won't be much fun either. It's getting colder every minute, and we've brought nothing to eat. What about just going home?" "Oh, but we can't," said Lucy. "Don't you see? We can't just go home, not after this. It's all on my account of the poor fawn. He's got into such trouble. He hid me from the witch, and he showed me the way back. That's what it means by comforting the Queen's enemies and fraternising with humans. We must simply try to rescue him. We must." "A lot we can do," said Edmund, "when we haven't even got anything to eat." "Shut up, you," said Peter, who was still very angry. "What do you think, Susan?"
"I have a horrible feeling that Lou is right," said Susan. "I don't want to go a step further, and I wish we'd never come. But I think we must try to do something for Mr. whatever his name is. I mean, you know, the fawn."
"That's what I feel too," said Peter. "I'm worried about having no food with us, and I'd vote for going back and getting something from the larder. Only there doesn't seem to be any certainty of getting into this country again once you've got out. I think we're just going to have to go on." "So do I," said both the girls. "If only we knew where the poor chap was imprisoned," said Peter. They were all still wondering what to do next when Lucy said,
"Look, there's a robin with such a red breast. It's the first bird I've seen here. I say, I wonder, can birds talk in Narnia? It looks as if it wants to say something to us."
Then she turned to the robin and said,
"Please, can you tell us where Tumnus the fawn has been taken to?"
As she said it, she took a step toward the bird. It at once flew away, but only as far as the next tree. There it perched and looked at them very hard, as if it had understood everything she'd said. Almost, without noticing that they had done so, the 4 children went a step or 2 nearer to it. At this, the robin flew away again to the next tree and once more looked at them very hard. You couldn't have found a robin with a redder chest or a brighter eye.
"Do you know," said Lucy, "I really believe he means us to follow him." "I have an idea he does. What do you think, Peter?" said Susan.
"Well, we might as well try it," answered Peter. The robin appeared to understand the matter thoroughly. It kept going from tree to tree, always a few yards ahead of them, but always so near that they could easily follow it. In this way it led them on slightly downhill. Wherever the robin alighted, a little shower of snow would fall off the branch. Presently the clouds parted overhead, and the sun came out, and the snow all around them grew dazzlingly bright. They had been travelling in this way for about an hour and a half, with the two girls in front, when Edmund said to Peter, "If you're not still high and mighty to talk to me, I've something to which I want to say, and you'd better listen to." "What is it?" said Peter. "Hush! Not so loud," said Edmund. "There's no good frightening the girls." "But have you realised what we're doing?" "What?" said Peter, lowering his voice. "We're following a guide we know nothing about. How do you know which side the bird's on?" "Why shouldn't it be leading us into a trap?" "That's a nasty idea. Still, a robin, you know. They're good in all the stories I've ever read. I'm sure a robin wouldn't be on the wrong side." "If it comes to that, which is the right side? How do we know that the fawns are on the right side and the queen—" "Yes, I know she's been told she's a witch. But how is it in the wrong? We did really know anything, do we? We don't know anything." "The fawn saved Lou."
"Well, he said he did, but how do we know? And there's another thing too. Has anyone the least idea of the way to get out of here, the way to get home?" "Great Scott!" said Peter. "I hadn't thought of that."
"And no chance of dinner either," said Edmund.